This is Mr. Mark with Question Mark News, and you are listening to KBBF 89.1 FM Calistoga.
KBBF radio that motivates profound thoughts in children.
All right. Hello, everybody. You are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show, and this is on KBBF 89.1 FM Calistoga. The Queer Life Radio Show, which is LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews here on KBBF 89.1 FM Calistoga. I am your host, Kaya Kramer, and this show airs live every Friday night, 6 to 8 p.m. in the San Francisco Bay Area, reaching all the way up to Redding and down to the South Bay Area. We are live every Friday night, and this replays every Tuesday night from 9 to 11 p.m. on KBBF 89.1 FM, and is syndicated every Wednesday night, 6 to 8 p.m. on KWTF 88.1 FM Bodega Bay. All episodes are streamed live from the studio via Google Hangouts on Air, which you can watch on thequeerlife.org. Thequeerlife.org has an archive of every single episode, links to all news topics mentioned, descriptions and info for all guests interviewed, access to Trans Atheist Podcast and Lesbian Honest Podcast, exclusive podcasts from the Queer Life family, and support pages for crisis hotlines and access to mental health professionals for those who are absolutely in need. Please like us on Facebook, facebook.com/thequeerlife. Follow us on Twitter @thequeerlife. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/thequeerliferadio. Disclaimer. What you hear on this show should not be taken as strict legal or medical advice. Please use your own discretion and check with a lawyer or doctor to directly address your legal or medical needs. If you are enjoying this program or any other programming on KBBF, visit kbbf-fm.org and hit the donate button. All your donations are greatly appreciated. Again, I am your host, Kaya Kramer, and you are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show. Again, you are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show, LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. I am your host, Kaya Kramer, and this is episode 67, My Gender Reassignment Surgery. And you actually did hear me correctly. I said my gender reassignment surgery. This might come as a little bit of a surprise because normally I don't talk about my personal life and how it pertains to me expressing that on this radio show. I try to keep it about the LGBT community at large, presenting news, interviewing other people who are doing amazing things, activists out there in the world who are doing incredible work, increasing awareness of LGBT rights and the needs for equality. But this episode, I'm going to be speaking from a very, very, very personal position. And it's something that I do with great consideration, because this show, again, it's not about me. This show is called The Queer Life. It's not called Kaya's Life. And it's about the movement. It's about LGBT equality. It's about spreading knowledge and understanding about our fellow human beings from one person to another. And it's just so important for me to just shout at the top of my lungs and say, hey, we're all human beings. We're all people. We're all trapped on this prison planet together. And we need to learn how to understand each other and to be able to listen to each other, especially when we disagree. And especially if we don't like the other person for whatever reason. And as I have posited on this show before, all reasons are valid. Whether you are scared of LGBT people, your fear is valid. Whether you are an LGBT queer identified person yourself and you're scared of people hurting you or discriminating against you, your fear is valid. But like I said, this show is not just about me. It's about the movement. And I have a unique privilege, and yes, I do mean that privilege, of being able to come on the radio and have all you wonderful people listening to what I have to share with you. And I'm sharing this episode, which again is episode 67, My Gender Reassignment Surgery. I'm sharing this because I know that a lot of you out there have been curious about it, the gender change surgery. And I know a lot of you people out there are curious about it because this whole transgender thing is happening right now. There's a big movement. In case you haven't heard, there's a person named Caitlyn Jenner, and there's a show called Orange is the New Black with Laverne Cox, and a lot of incredible things have happened. And transgender awareness has skyrocketed into the stratosphere, and now it's on the tip of even the President of the United States' tongue. And I'll actually be getting to that a bit later, but surgery, that's a big question. And I have spoken countless hours in schools, universities, middle school classes, church groups, to mental health professionals, to doctors, to lawyers, to school faculty. I've spoken to them all about transgender issues. And the one question that comes up all the time is surgery. Whether I'm going to have surgery, what the surgery is like, how could you even go through with having such a surgery? And I speak about this from my perspective as a transgender woman. I've been out since about 2010, and I've had a little bit of time here to sit and understand my needs and my feelings and my desires and my relationship to my body as a transgender woman. Because like any other woman, the concept of our body, the topic of our bodies, is constantly being talked about. And transgender women are no different, except one big difference. Transgender women were not quote unquote born women. I mean, I know a lot of you transgender listeners are out there saying, yes, I was born a woman. I've always felt like this. Yes, that's from the transgender perspective. I have always felt quote unquote like a woman, like I should have been a girl. But for the rest of the world, the rest of you out there, you saw us being born into little baby boys, and that's all you knew. And for many of us, that's all that we knew. That's all that I knew as a kid. I didn't understand. Honestly, when I was little, I knew that I felt different, But it wasn't until the world told me that boys and girls were different, that men and women had to lead different lives, did I start to question myself and the roles that were thrusted upon me. People told me that I was a handsome young man, and they told me that over and over and over again. And when you're told something over and over and over again, and even if it doesn't quite fit right, you start to believe them. And you start letting it dictate your life, and you start letting it affect everything you do, every single thought, every single moment of your existence. And that was my childhood. I will say that I had a good childhood. I had parents that loved me. I had a good relationship with my brother. I had a lot of friends and stuff, but I knew something wasn't right. I knew that I was a little different. And I chalked it up to just being eccentric or silly. I was always the little joker child and just trying to stand out. I didn't want to be like everybody else. And it wasn't that cliche story of, as a transgender woman, that I would be an effeminate little boy and I wanted to play with girls and Barbies and wear princess dresses. It's not so black and white. I liked Spider-Man as a kid, I'll be honest. Spider-Man's awesome. Batman's cool. So is Wonder Woman. So is Supergirl. I kind of liked it all. And still, though, I couldn't escape that huge feeling inside of my chest that something wasn't right. That people telling me that I was a handsome young man or, a nice boy, that it didn't fit. I felt so restricted. I felt that, okay, if everybody's seeing me as this little boy, I gotta be what everybody's telling me to be. I guess they're right. I'm the only person that thinks otherwise. I must be delusional. I mean, what a pill to swallow as a little kid, thinking to yourself, there must be something wrong with me. I should just listen to everybody else. That's what I logically reasoned within my child brain. And it hurt. It made me sad. Made me feel like I all of a sudden had a secret. And I did. And it was a secret that I kept for most of my life up until, again, I came out in early 2010 as transgender. Because when I was a kid, even in the 90s, I didn't have a word for it. I didn't know that a boy could grow up to be a woman. I didn't know that that was something feasible. I just kept thinking about it and thinking about it to myself that, well, I know that I'm different. I know that there is a big part of me that is feminine, and I wanted to be a girl that did boy things. That's what I wanted to be. But I didn't have a word for it. Transgender never crossed my path. Not in school, not at home, not from my friends. The only word that I heard was gay. And the F word, which I won't say on here. I heard that a lot too. And the word queer, but in a derogatory term. These were the words I grew up with. let me tell you, I grew up in Sonoma County, north of San Francisco, if you're listening internationally. This is a very liberal place. But these were the only words I heard. I heard gay being used in a derogatory way by all of my friends. If you did something wrong, that was gay. If you liked something that you weren't supposed to like as a boy, that was gay. The obvious stuff, but even the small stuff too. If you stood a certain way, you were gay. And that word kept getting hammered into my head over and over and over again. I learned that being gay was wrong. When you realize that the only word you have to understand what you think you might be is the worst thing ever, it's pretty soul-shattering. I remember in sex ed in elementary school that we started talking about penises and vaginas and sex and protection and condoms. And the boys had their time and the girls had their time with the teacher. And I remember being left out of the girls' conversation. I was smart enough to understand why, but again, never once did I hear anything about transgender or that it was a possibility. And I'll be honest, never once did I hear anything about being gay during sex ed. All I learned about sex ed was concerning being gay was HIV and AIDS. So again, I had further reinforcement that being gay, my only word for how I felt, was wrong because it meant you would be diseased. And that hurt too. But like all my other feelings, I just learned how to swallow it, how to just push that feeling of sadness and weakness all the way down, because I'm the oldest sibling. At that time, I was the big brother. I was the oldest son. And I had a responsibility. I thought I had a responsibility to be the strong one and eventually be there to support my family, because I thought that's what role was. And so I pushed all my feelings down. If you're just tuning in right now, again, you are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show. LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. I'm your host, Kaya Kramer. This is episode 67. I'm talking about my gender reassignment surgery. And for those of you listening, this is a very, very, very personal subject for me because I try not to talk about my own experiences so blatantly, because this show is not about me. It's about the movement, and it's about education, and it's about understanding each other as human beings. But I am taking this episode here, just this episode, to talk about my experiences, my feelings with being a transgender woman, and my relationship to my body, my relationship to my penis, and gender reassignment surgery. Because it's a big deal. It's a really big deal to think about our relationships to our bodies. And I'll tell you what, my relationship to my body has been a roller coaster. And I know that might be the same for a lot of you out there, whether you're transgender or not. Our relationships with our bodies are incredibly complex. Some of us feel like we're overweight. Some of us feel like, if you're a boy, a lot of boys wish they had a bigger penis. A lot of women feel like they had bigger boobs. We all feel like at some point that our bodies are less than. So I'm not trying to say that my experience is any better or worse than anybody else's. It's simply my experience. And that's what I'm sharing here right now, because a lot of people do ask me about surgery. And I'm taking the time right now to give you a little bit of perspective. My perspective on why I am deciding to have gender reassignment surgery. And it's about my relationship with my body. And just to let you know and to state it out loud, not every trans woman undergoes surgery. Not every trans man undergoes surgery. And to assume that every trans person is going to have surgery is assuming what somebody's going to do with their body. I know it seems kind of strange, but let me put it in perspective here. Not everybody is expected to get surgery if they're overweight to lose weight. Some people might be okay. Or if somebody feels less than for having smaller breasts, it doesn't mean that they're going to opt to have breast augmentation surgery. It's a choice to have surgery, but it's a deeply seated choice that, in the case of the individual, is a decision that is made to improve the quality of one person's life. And that's part of why I'm having gender reassignment surgery. I'm talking about gender reassignment surgery because I'm in a position where I can share my story and I can share what it's like to be transgender because I'm an activist. I'm public. I'm a person out there who's willing to, but not everybody out there who's transgender is willing to be this vulnerable this publicly. And this show reaches thousands upon thousands of people, all you listeners out there. And to be able to come on the radio and talk about what I'm going to do with my genitals is deeply, deeply personal. But it's a subject I bring up because so many of you are curious. I was curious. And I'm sharing it with you because I wish somebody shared it with me when I was a kid. I wish I heard this. I wish I knew that this was a possibility. For those of you that don't know, gender reassignment surgery is the transgender surgery. It's where they turn, in my case, I'm a trans woman, which means I was assigned male at birth, which means I was quote unquote born a boy. And they turn a penis into a vagina. I'll explain what that means more in a little bit. At first, the operation was called the operation. And then it was called sexual reassignment surgery. And then as language evolved and understanding of the surgery evolved, it turned into gender reassignment surgery. And then it's actually evolved further than that, but I'm using the term gender reassignment surgery because it's easy to understand. It's now more typically being called gender confirmation surgery because it confirms the way you feel about your gender and how you identify in terms of gender. And again, I'm being public about this because I want to help you understand a little bit what I'm going through. A lot of trans people may share some of the same feelings that I have about gender reassignment surgery, but again, these are my experiences, and experiences change from individual to individual. So, of course, please don't assume that every transgender person is going to feel exactly the same way that I do about gender reassignment surgery. And also, too, if you run across transgender people and you don't know them very well, or you don't know them at all, or you're not close, or what have you, or it's inappropriate timing, it's probably not polite to ask them whether they're having surgery, because, well, let's be honest, we're talking about what's between somebody's legs. And I know this has cultural impacts, and people are curious for valid reasons, but I'm explaining because I'm comfortable with it, and I'm in the role of being able to share with so many people of you out there because of my position. I'm a radio show host. I get on the radio and I talk about this stuff, but it's probably not appropriate to ask every transgender person you run into whether they're going to have surgery. And like I said, I'm talking about it because I'm an advocate, because I'm a public educator. I'm in the public eye. My being transgender is no secret. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter and Pinterest, and I'm kind of a social media junkie. Pretty much everybody who knows me knows that I'm transgender. I don't hide it. I don't hide it in my day job. I don't hide it from my partner. I don't hide it from my family. My being transgender is public. And my having gender reassignment surgery coming up is public too. And again, not every trans person decides to have this surgery. It's just my experience. I'm not exactly sure what the statistic is for trans people having the surgery or not having the surgery. It's just what I'm doing. And I'm speaking as a transgender woman. Transgender men have a different surgery if they opt to have any surgeries at all. Transgender men may opt to remove their breasts, mastectomy, or what's known as top surgery, or they may opt to have a phalloplasty, which is the creation of a penis. And for some transgender men, that's really important for them to have a higher quality of life. And for some transgender men, it's unnecessary. But that's their choice. All the stuff that I'm talking about here is available on the internet. Like I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm just a radio show host. I'm just a person that is transgender. And I'm just sharing my experiences with you. I'm going to have to take a quick musical break right here for just a couple minutes, but I want to talk to you some more about this. Be right back after this very short break. I'll be talking more about my surgery, what it is, and how it's going to go. Again, you're listening to the Queer Life Radio Show. Be right back.
KBBF 89.1 FM, conquistando tu corazón.
Estás escuchando KBBF 89.1 FM, Radio Cultura.
All right, everybody. Again, you are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show, LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. I am your host, Kaya Kramer, and this is episode 67, My Gender Reassignment Surgery. Like I said, my gender reassignment surgery. Technically the one that I'm going to be having next month. I'll get into that though. I'll explain it. And the reason why I'm explaining this is because yesterday was Thanksgiving. And today is Black Friday, where people are trampling each other at Best Buy and Walmart. But yesterday was Thanksgiving. And I want to talk about the surgery that I'm having, and how grateful for it that I am, and how appreciative that science is even at a place where such a surgery exists. And I'm grateful that I live in a world where I can walk down the street and I can be just fine. Nobody will hurt me. Of course, I do live in the bubble of Sonoma County, north of San Francisco. So it's a pretty liberal place. But I'm safe. And I'm grateful for that. As a transgender woman, as a person, as a human being on planet Earth. And I'm grateful that I'm going to be having surgery. Gender reassignment surgery, that is. I'm grateful because, first off, it's a really, really, really expensive surgery. At least with my surgeon. His name is Dr. Meltzer. He's in Arizona. And he has done over 3,000 vaginoplasties. That's the name of at least the first surgery. Called vaginoplasty. You can Google it. And that surgery costs $30,000. The second surgery is a labiaplasty. That is $5,500. And the reason why I'm so grateful is because I have covered California and I'm covered through Kaiser. And all I have to pay is a copay. How incredible is that? Now that our laws have changed and times have changed, gender reassignment surgery, which is the composition of these two surgeries, the vaginoplasty and the labiaplasty, they are both considered medically necessary for a transgender, in this case, woman, well-being. The question that I asked myself before going into this surgery was, could I be happy without the surgery? Could I live the rest of my life with a penis? And the answer to that's yeah. I'm grateful and I have a life that is good. And I'm healthy, and I have people that love me, and I have work, and I can come on the radio here. So I am happy. I'm a very fortunate person, and I'm grateful for it. I'm thankful for it. that I have a happy life, but I asked myself, would I be happier if I had the surgery? And I sat and I thought about it and I cried about it for a really long time. I thought about my relationship with my body, with my penis, and what that feels like to be a transgender woman with that body part. And it's a head trip. It really is. It affects you so deeply to the core. I know that for the majority of my life, I realized that waking up with a girl body, quote unquote, was just fantasy. I always wished that a magic wand would change my body. I always wished that, there was something that would just make it happen magically. And so I relegated it to fantasy. I thought, this will never happen. I will always have a boy body. And I was okay with that for a while. But then the laws changed. And medical coverage changed. And now this surgery is covered. How incredible is that? Something that I relegated to fantasy my entire life, something that would never happen, is now something that I'm going to be supported on medically and financially. Whatever your politics are on whether or not gender reassignment surgery should be covered by insurance, whether you agree with it or disagree with that, that's your opinion, and I respect it, even if you don't think it's medically necessary. But the American Psychological Association and medical bodies all over the country and world believe that this is something that improves the quality of life for transgender women and men who experience gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is a term that is outlined in the DSM-5 that simply in layman's terms means that I feel at conflict with my body and my genitals, and I wish it was that of the opposite sex. In my case, a woman. I wish I had a woman's body. So that's why, in my case, as a transgender woman, as a transsexual woman, I take hormones. I inject estrogen into my body every 2 weeks, which changes my hormonal balance. I take anti-androgens, which drops my testosterone. I'm 26 years old, so I can guarantee you my body naturally produces a lot of testosterone. And I take another medication called progesterone, which sort of tricks my body into like this sort of semi-pregnant state where I develop like my body like a pregnant woman. So I simultaneously have hot flashes and I feel like I'm going through puberty and I feel like I'm having menopause all at the same time. Although, fortunately, no periods. Sorry, ladies. And now I'm going to be having gender reassignment surgery where they're going to turn my penis into a vagina. And that's really, really incredible. I say to a lot of other transgender people who are on the wait list to have gender reassignment surgery, I say to them, because they're usually very excited and they want it to happen now, but I posit that it's good that they make you wait because it gives you time to think. Like I was saying before, for most of our lives, we think that having that body part, having a vagina, is something that will never happen. And so you sort of semi become okay with it. But when it becomes real, your consciousness has then shifted. You know that it's going to happen, but it's a little ways off. Might be a year, might be 2 years, might be a couple months. It's not going to happen tomorrow. And that's okay. I say it's okay because, again, that shift in consciousness was something I needed to understand my body, to learn to love my body, to learn to love that part of me that I wanted to change, to get rid of. And I had to learn to love my penis, which is a part of my body and an integral part of gender reassignment surgery. It's something that is so deeply profound that it's extremely hard to describe in words. But maybe you can understand if you just keep listening to this, because I learned to love my body, even though I wanted to get rid of that body part, even though I wished I had a different one. I learned to love it because it's going to be giving me a great gift. Without it, I couldn't have the surgery. I mean, medically speaking, I couldn't. I will explain what the procedure is in a moment here, but I needed it. And more importantly, though, I needed to learn how to love it. I needed to learn to love my body, the body that I was born with, because the body that I was born with is not necessarily something I can swap out for another one or bring to the Apple store and or upgrade to a new model. We have our bodies for this entire life, whether you believe in multiple lifetimes or going to heaven or whatever, or whether you believe that I'm going to go to hell. That's a possibility too. We've got to learn to live with the body that we have. And I want to live with love in my life. I want to learn how to love myself. I want to learn how to love my body. I don't want to have self-hatred anymore. I don't want to feel less than because I wished I had something else. And this time since learning that I could have the surgery and that it was going to be covered for the most part was so important, so amazing for me and my relationship with myself. I'm going to share with you a few details here about the surgery. Again, it is surgical. I'm speaking about this all in a medical context here. There's nothing inappropriate about the word penis or the word vagina. I'm speaking about it simply medically and about medical procedures. Like I said, I'm going through the Kaiser system, and the way Kaiser works, at least for me in the state of California, to get the surgery, I had to at least be out for a couple years. And I had to have been seeing a therapist that verified that I was indeed a transgender woman and that I identified as a woman, even though I was assigned male at birth. As in, a doctor said, "It's a baby boy," although he didn't ask me. I know that's silly, but that's just sort of how it is. And so, like I said, I've been out since early 2010, which means I've been out nearly 6 years now. And so I've had a little bit of time to think about what it's like to live and breathe and be a transgender woman in the world. So you have to be out for, the way I understand it, at least 2 years before you can have surgery. And you need to be on hormones, hormone replacement therapy, which I just explained, for at least a year, because you need to understand what it's like to have your body change medically. And it did change. The hormones changed my body so much. It was so crazy what happened to my body when I started taking hormones. I started taking hormones August of 2014, 13, a couple of years now. I'm not good at math, but and each month that went by, I noticed my body change. And I know a lot of you are rolling your eyes and say, well, that's just like puberty. Yeah, it is just like puberty, except for when you're in your 20s, or at least when I'm in my 20s here. I thought I already did puberty. The wrong one, but I got a chance to go through a second puberty, and I noticed my breasts start to grow, and I noticed fat being distributed to different parts of my body, and my butt getting bigger, and my hips getting bigger, and my face getting softer looking and more feminine looking, and my skin getting softer, and my hair changing, and my nails changing, and just my body changed. And I saw in front of me, right before my own eyes, the body of a woman. And when I walked past the mirror a couple of weeks ago, after getting out of the shower, I didn't recognize my reflection. I thought, who is this woman in my house? Who's this Asian lady? And I realized that was me. And because I'm a crybaby, I cried, because my body, I realized, was closer to what I wanted it to be than ever before. And so I got approved for surgery. And the way it happens through Kaiser, of course, is you contact your Kaiser doctor and they refer you to the transition clinic in Oakland, land of the Oaks. And the transition clinic through Kaiser is a specific clinic that is designed to help transgender people deal with their issues. And my issue was I needed surgery. So they had me talk with some of their mental health professionals other than my own therapist, which I've seen diligently for years now. And they made me talk to their social worker. And then I sat before a panel of doctors and social workers and nurses. And these appointments are months and months out. So it's a long process to get these appointments. And at the end of that panel, the doctors and nurses and surgeon all said to me, Kaya, we have deemed it medically necessary for you to have gender reassignment surgery. And then I started freaking out, because that's when it became semi-real. Then they gave me a date to meet the surgeon, in this case, Dr. Toby Meltzer in Arizona. And that appointment was way far out. It was like 7 months later. So more waiting. And Kaiser paid for the trip to go out to Arizona. They had a travel agency set me up with tickets, and I went through the airports and all that stuff. And I flew out from Santa Rosa Airport, which was actually pretty awesome because I'd never done that before. And I went to go see the surgeon. And Dr. Toby Meltzer was a funny Jewish man. I can say that because my family is part of my family is Jewish. I'm a Kramer. And he was very nice. And he answered all my questions and all my fears about surgery and what could happen and what could go wrong, and without going into every excruciating detail. A lot of things can go wrong, but this is a surgeon who has done over 3,000 gender reassignment surgeries for transgender women. So he's pretty good at it by now, I expect. And a lot of trans girls have been happy after they got their surgery. So I met with the surgeon and had my little robe on, and they inspected me, and they said that I was a good candidate for this surgery. And they went through all my health history, and they asked me if I smoked cigarettes, and I did smoke cigarettes at one point, but I've quit I haven't smoked a cigarette in a couple of years now. And then I got my surgery date, which was like a year and a half to 2 years later. But that's actually next month now. It's taken a long time to get to this point where I finally have the surgery coming. It's really crazy. I'm still constantly just so flabbergasted that is actually happening. The surgeon gave me emailed me a packet that I had to read. It was a 42-page packet about the surgery, and I had to read through every single page and sign every single page, saying that I acknowledged and understood what everything meant. And I'm not going to go through every single little detail, just give you the highlights from it, but it's pretty intense. Basically, after I read that packet about what the surgery is and what will happen in the stages and all that stuff, I cried because it's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I could die. But yeah, I could die walking. I could die driving home. I could die getting struck by lightning. I could, it's a part of life. So I figure, hey, I'm healthy. I'm in good shape. I eat well. I think it'll be okay. On this packet for what's called stage 1 surgery, it's called the vaginoplasty.pdf, the file type. And on the first page, in bold letters, it says intended results. And this basically sums up the entire surgery in a nutshell. The intended results are a natural appearing vagina with normal sensation adequate for sexual intercourse. When I read that, I was floored. I was just like, what? I'm going to have that? How is this even possible? I mean, I understand it medically. I've seen the surgery before, medical videos of it, which you can find on YouTube. Actually, kind of a strange thing to see on YouTube, but of course you can watch anything on YouTube. But the intended results are a natural appearing vagina with normal sensation adequate for sexual intercourse. So it's going to look natural. It's going to seem like a regular vagina, and it's going to have normal sensation, feeling adequate for sexual intercourse. And so it's going to be functional. it's going to quote unquote work. Of course, I won't have a womb or a uterus, and I won't have ovaries. So, of course, I won't be able to give birth or anything. But, I mean, maybe in the future there will be some scientific breakthrough, but that's not the reason why I'm having the surgery. It's not so I can get pregnant. I'm basically medically sterile right now because of the medications I take. But this will definitely ensure that I'll be 100% sterile because I won't have sperm anymore. And so I won't be able to father any children. Which is okay. Because if I ever want children, I can adopt. Because there's so many kids that need parents or foster. And I tip my hat off to anybody who is doing that. A foster parent or an adoptive parent. That's incredible. And maybe I'll do that someday. Sorry, this again, if you are just tuning in right now, you are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show, LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. I'm your host, Kaya Kramer, and this is episode 67, my gender reassignment surgery. And like I said, I'm talking about my upcoming surgery, something that I very seldom talk about because, again, this show is not just about me, it's about the community. But I've been asked so much lately about transgender surgery, gender confirmation surgery, gender reassignment surgery that I felt like it was really important to explain that to you guys, because I know I was curious about it. It's valid. Anyway, I'm going to talk more about what the procedure is for the surgery and what are all the details and how it goes and all that stuff after the hour here. I'm going to go away for a short break, but I promise you I will be back in just a couple minutes. Please stay tuned. You've been listening to the Queer Life Radio Show, LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. I'm your host, Kaya Kramer. Be right back after this short break.
Estás escuchando KBBF 89.1 FM Calistoga, Santa Rosa, la voz de tu comunidad.
Si es como yo, escucha KBBF 89.1 FM, la voz de tu comunidad. Bienvenida.
Everybody, you are listening to Queer Life Show. LGBT more discussions, interviews. I am your host, Tyler. This is episode 67. My gender reassignment. As I said, this will be one of very, very few episodes, if any, that I will get as deeply personal and vulnerable as I am now because I'm talking about myself. But I'm talking about myself and the surgery that I'm going to be having because I wanted to let you know what it's about and what it means to have a surgery like this. And what it means for me to have a surgery like this, what it means for the people that are close to me, for me to have a surgery like this. Again, if you are just tuning in right now, this is the Queer Life Radio Show, and if you want to see the beginning of what I'm talking about here, you can go to thequeerlife.org. This is episode 67. I'll probably open the line for questions when I'm done talking here, but if you want to hold down the phone number, no questions yet, but it will be for 707-545-0318. That number again, 707-545-0318. I'll be opening the line for questions in about 10 minutes from now. And like I said, I'm going to be having gender reassignment surgery. The intended results are a natural appearing vagina with normal sensation adequate for sexual intercourse, which means that it will look real and it will feel real and it will work, sexually speaking. And that's really amazing. The procedure description, as described in the PDF that my surgeon gave me, says, Dr. Meltzer performs this procedure under general or spinal anesthesia and takes approximately 3.5 to 4 hours. The testicles and the erectile tissue of the penis are removed. The clitoris is formed from the glands of the penis, keeping the nerves that supply it intact, thereby creating a sensate clitoris and labia. A small portion of scrotum is used to fashion the labia, the lips of the vagina. Cotton packing or bolsters are placed in the vagina at the end of the procedure. Patients stay at the recovery care center and the hospital for a total of 9 nights. That's basically what the surgery is. And you heard right. I'll be in the hospital for 9 nights. 9 nights in what I'm told is excruciating pain. But that all change is painful, and especially such drastic physical change. But it's not going to change who I am or what I am. I'll always be the same person, growing and learning and hopefully thriving. But it's a part of life. It's a part of understanding here. I am by myself and looks like I'm receiving a call, but I'm going to go for a quick break here and pick up the phone and see what they want. Be right back. All right, everybody. Again, this is Kaya on the Queer Life Radio Show. We are back. Just had a caller, and he brought up a good point. He was saying, if I have the surgery, then I won't be able to have sexual feeling anymore, and that's a valid concern, and it's something that a lot of people are not sure about, but what actually happens, medically speaking, is they actually take the nerves in the penis and they rearrange them down there. So they don't actually remove any of the sensitive nerves in there that give you that sexual feeling down there. They just move them into different formation in the shape of a vagina. And so in terms of sexual intercourse, I will be able to have normal sensation in terms of being able to have sex with a partner using that part of my body. It will just be different. It'll just sort of be rearranged. There's a big misconception about this surgery that they remove the penis. They don't actually remove it. This is what's called penile inversion surgery. They basically take the penis, again, they strip the erectile tissue, and they create a space inside of me, inside of that area of my body, and they insert it, inverted. So I still will technically have a penis, but it will be inside me. To speak more kind of generally speaking, if you've ever heard of tucking, I've heard that it feels like a very, very intense tuck, but it very much will work, and I still will have sexual sensation in my new neo-vagina. That's what it's called. It's called a neo-vagina. Neo is the Latin prefix meaning new, or if you watch The Matrix, it means the one, but I'm just kidding. That's what's called stage 1 surgery, which is what I'll actually be having next December. So when you're in bed and waking up and having Christmas, I'm going to be in a hospital in a lot of pain, but getting the one Christmas present that I always wanted. So caller, thank you very much for your question, because that is a common one that I get asked a lot of the time. Will it work if I get the surgery? Will I be able to feel anything? And yes, I will. In fact, a lot of transgender girls who have had this surgery say that it feels good. It feels better. They are even more, they have even more sensation than they ever did before when they had a penis. And so for a lot of transgender women, this is an improvement. This surgery is very state of the art, and it is very highly practiced. And so it will work. Medically speaking, there is a chance that it might not work if something goes wrong. And I have had to acknowledge that. If something goes wrong, I have to live with that. Obviously, it's permanent. There's no going back. I know that. It is permanent. But that's okay, because it's something that I've always wanted. And, you know, people ask a lot about sex and if you can have sex after the surgery. And again, yes, you can have sex after having gender reassignment surgery. It works. It feels good. I am told, medically am told it works. And from trans women I've talked to who've had the surgery and have been, who have had sexual interactions with others, either men or women, they say that it feels good. The question a lot of people, or the comment a lot of people say, well, it's not like a real vagina. It's like a real vagina, but it isn't the same. It's not quite exactly like a real vagina, because the reality is it's an inverted penis that has been surgically designed to look like a vagina. So I'm real about it. I know what it is. I'm not delusional, but it will look like and feel as close to my own feeling of what my understanding of what a vagina is. But of course, I understand the reality. I will never know what it's like to have a quote unquote real vagina. And that's okay. That's part of my life. You know? And that's what I just described here is the part that is called stage 1 surgery. Now, my doctor, Dr. Toby Meltzer, does it in 2 parts. Other surgeons do it all in one surgery, a vaginoplasty and a labiaplasty. I'll describe what a labiaplasty is right now, actually. What's called second stage labiaplasty. A secondary procedure, labiaplasty, is recommended, although not required, if the patient desires further definition of the labia and the hooding of the clitoris. This can be done at a second stage known as a labiaplasty. This is a separate procedure with a separate fee. One must wait a minimum of 3 months to allow for an appropriate blood supply before this procedure can be performed. Not all patients will find this stage necessary or desired. It is mostly based on personal preference. So in some ways I get to design the way mine looks, but of course, as somebody, I've been with a lot of female partners when I was quote unquote a straight guy. And vaginas all look different. There's no standard for what a vagina looks like. If a lot of you have seen them through pornography, you'll understand that that's an illusion of what a quote-unquote perfect vagina looks like. All of them look different because all people have different shapes and different bodies and different formation of their labia and different positioning of the clitoris and different definition. It's all pretty different. So that second stage surgery, which is a separate surgery in the case of my doctor, because he believes that you should probably wait a couple months to see how well it heals and to give it time to assume the shape that it's going to heal into being. And then once it's healed up after 3 months, they say, then they do the labiaplasty. And I'll be doing that actually about 8 months later because, again, scheduling all this stuff is months and months out. So if you are a transgender person and you're looking to undergo these surgeries, please expect to wait and be patient because it's worth it. It's worth the wait. I'm going to keep talking here a little bit more about the surgery process, but I am going to open up the lines here for questioning again. If you have any questions, and especially if you'd like to come on the air and everything. Again, I am one person running this show here, so if somebody calls, I'll have to put it on musical break for a moment. But if you have a question, and make it quick, the phone number here is 707-545-0318. That number again, 707-545-0318 if you have any questions about this surgery and what it's going to be like or whether you think it's appropriate or not. So I'm going to be having stage 1 next month, December 23rd, beginning the Christmas present that I always wanted. And I'll be in the hospital for 9 nights. What will happen is basically after 2 days, they'll remove packing and they'll walk me around the hospital and I'll have to be back on my feet. I'll have a catheter in me and they'll be slowly getting me back up so that I can be mobile again. I will be in a lot of pain and I will be on pain medications, but that's all part of it. And then after the 9th night, the next day, I will be boarding an airplane and coming back home and resting, and which will be about January 1st. So during Christmas time, I won't be here to broadcast. I'll play an old episode, but so I apologize that I won't be able to present another live show. I'll be a little bit preoccupied, but that's okay. I've had a pretty good track record. I've only missed a day for being sick. All 67 episodes. And once I get back, then my recovery will be at home. And I'm actually still in school, so I'll actually have to be going back to school in 20 days after I get back. So hopefully I'll be well enough to move around. But I'm pretty healthy, so that's not too bad. But since it is a medically created vagina, it's called a neo-vagina, it is not the same as a regular vagina. And like a piercing, and like an ear piercing or a nose piercing, in my case, I have a nose piercing, you have to dilate it. You have to keep the space open. Otherwise, it will actually close in on itself because it's artificially created. It's not a naturally growing vagina, so you have to keep that space stretched and open. That's what dilating is. That's why when you get an ear piercing, they tell you, don't take the piercing out, otherwise the hole will close. The same thing goes for having gender reassignment surgery. And basically, dilating works by using dilators. Dilators are essentially medically designed dildos. They're medical dildos, essentially, just to put it in perspective for you. And you insert it all the way, and you hold it in for about 30 minutes. And that's just one time. But you have to do that a lot, actually. And then they've got different thicknesses so that you use it to keep it stretched and expanded, and so that the hole doesn't close. Which, after all this money and effort and time, I definitely don't want that to happen. So I'll have to be diligent. They actually gave me a schedule here, the dilating schedule. The first month, actually, after surgery, I'll have to dilate 4 times a day. Dilations should be timed 3 to 5 hours apart. So basically, it'll take about 30 minutes, I'm told, each time, 30, 40-ish minutes of having to dilate, expand the neovagina with these dilators. And so that's about 2 hours of every day spent on my back, stretching that space that they created medically. And then the second, third, fourth, and fifth month, I'll have to dilate twice a day. And they say, please note, if it is getting easier towards the fourth month, you may reduce your frequency to once a day. However, please contact our office and speak with a nurse before just doing so. Here's an interesting thing they say here, though. They say you may have sexual intercourse after 3 months. And that's pretty amazing. So I can use my new neovagina sexually after 3 months. And they say here, though, remember, intercourse does not completely replace dilation, but intercourse can be used as a form of dilation because you're putting something in there to expand the space, stretch the neovagina. So, of course, it depends on the intercourse partner and what size their penis is or whatever or however. I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into my sex life at all here, but they say that I'll still have to dilate. It says after 1 year, you may start decreasing your frequency by a day or two between dilations. As it becomes either easier, you may further decrease your frequency. However, we strongly recommend that you check at least once a week for as long as needed. Basically, I'm going to have to dilate that space for the rest of my life. It will stay expanded and opened if I've been consistent for a while. Like if you've had a piercing for, several years and then you take your earrings out for a couple weeks, you'll probably be okay. But eventually the tissue does close because that's part of the healing process. The holes don't naturally stay open. Generally, our human bodies are fairly miraculous and they heal up any openings or whatnot. So, again, if you are just tuning in right now, you are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show. LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. I'm your host, Kaya Kramer, and this is episode 67, My Gender Reassignment Surgery. And this is one of few, if any, very personal episodes where I speak from my own perspective as a transgender woman undergoing gender reassignment surgery next month, in less than a month, actually. December 23rd, a couple days before Christmas. Yes, I know I will be in a hospital right before Christmas. And so that's going to be my surgery. And I just have to say that it's a complete head trip to know that that part of my body is going to change forever. Does it make me any more of a woman than I am now? No, it doesn't. I'll always be a transgender woman. I know that, whether I have this surgery or not. That's okay, though. I am a transgender woman. I am a transsexual. That's fine. I'm okay with myself. I know what I am. And I have the great fortune of being loved and supported in whatever I may do. And if for whatever reason I decide the day before that I don't want to do it, that's valid too. Because I know that's the case for some other transgender people, that they decide, you know what? I like my body just the way it is. And then they choose not to have it. That is so fine too. But it's fine also if I do decide to have it, and I am deciding to have it. And that's a decision that I did not make lightly. I battled with it. I cried with it. I talked with it. I argued with it. This idea of changing my body like that is just so incredible. And I have got the great fortune of having parents that completely support me and see me as their daughter. And I have a brother that sees me as his sister. And a partner that cares about me and loves me. And I have friends that love me and supported me even when they knew me as a boy. Going to high school, I was bald in high school. I was president of Star Wars Club, actually. And I know a lot of people crack up. I was a huge nerd. I'm a black belt. I fought in the ring. I put gloves on and fought and won. And I'm an Eagle Scout. I did some pretty manly stuff. I liked boy things. I still do like boy things, quote unquote. Not that girls aren't allowed to like boy things, but so I consider myself to be a rounded person. Somebody who's constantly learning and constantly listening and constantly trying to understand myself. You know? I'm gonna have to go away for a short break again here. I'll be right back. I'll be talking more about it. I'm gonna open up the phone lines again if you have any quick questions. The phone number is 707-545-0318. That phone number again, 707-545-0318. Again, you're listening to the Queer Life Radio Show. Be right back after this short break.
KBBF 89.1, la primera radio bilingüe comunitaria en los Estados Unidos.
Nuestro teléfono en cabina 707-545-0318. KBBF, la voz de tu comunidad.
All right, everybody. Again, you are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show. LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. I am your host, Kaya Kramer, and this is episode 67, My Gender Reassignment Surgery. Like I said, this is a very personal subject and a personal perspective of which I generally don't bring into the show because the show is not about me or necessarily my experiences. It's about what everybody else is doing, and I'm an amplifier for that. But because I am in a position of advocacy and leadership, and I've been asked a lot about gender reassignment surgery. A lot of people ask me, Kaya, are you having the surgery? So I spent these, at the very least, the last hour and a half talking about gender reassignment surgery. If you are just tuning in right now and you missed the beginning part of the show, you can visit thequeerlife.org. This is episode 67, My Gender Reassignment Surgery. And you can find the beginning of this episode if you download the podcast next week, because it usually takes a week to process and get it from the radio station and everything and upload it. It'll be a higher quality version, although the YouTube version isn't bad. You get to watch a video because I stream via Google Hangouts on air. I'm down to the last half hour of the show right now, and I've been talking about what the gender reassignment surgery is, whether or not all trans women do it, why I'm doing it, how long I've been dealing with deciding to go through with it, gender dysphoria, how much the surgery costs, who I'm doing it through Kaiser, what doctor I'm using, what doctor is operating on me with this surgery, what method this surgeon does. Again, if you've missed that, just go to the website and watch the beginning of the show, and that will be the full episode will be available as soon as the streaming finishes. So that's something educational, I hope, for you guys to listen to. And again, if you're curious about this surgery for either yourself or just for your understanding, just Google gender reassignment surgery and you can find a ton of stuff out there. There's videos where you can watch the surgery happen. I don't know what your constitution level is. Your constitution has to be at least a 16 to watch it, for any of you Dungeons and Dragons nerds out there. But it's pretty intense, and it's a life-changing surgery, and it's one that I'll be having the opportunity to go through next month. And I talked about how the neo-vagina, the newly created vagina that they'll create for me from my penis, will work, and it will work sexually speaking. The intended results are a natural appearing vagina with normal sensation adequate for sexual intercourse. And that's what I'm expecting. And of course, anything could go wrong, but I'm a healthy person. I eat healthy, I exercise, I do yoga, and I don't smoke cigarettes or anything or drink alcohol, so it'll probably go fine. But it could go wrong. There's that too. And I talked about dilating. Dilating is stretching the new neo vagina and making sure that it doesn't close up, because yes, it can close up. Like I said, we are in the last half hour of the show. If you have any quick burning questions, you can visit thequeerlife.org/contact or thequeerlife.org and hit the contact button and email me if you want it to be private. Or you can tweet me at This Is Kaya or at The Queer Life if you have specific questions about the surgery. Or you can give me a call right now. Again, this is a single person operated show, so if somebody calls me, I have to put you on hold, and please make your question fast. The phone number is 707-545-0318. That phone number again, 707-545-0318. And I'd be willing to take just a couple questions here. But that's pretty much it. It's a huge journey. If you've been listening to the entire episode, you will have heard that this is something that doesn't happen overnight. You don't just go into a room and just magically change into a girl. It takes years of hormone replacement therapy and takes years of processing and therapy and medical evaluation for them to decide that it's medically necessary for you to have this surgery. You don't just walk in and they just pump you full of hormones and breast augmentation and they change and do facial feminization surgery, facial surgery, and they don't shave down your Adam's apple and make your butt bigger and give you a vagina and you walk out and you're a girl. It doesn't work like that. It all takes time. Of course, unless your name is Caitlyn Jenner and you have a bajillion dollars and you can pay for it all in one go. But most trans people are just lower middle class, poor for the most part, maybe middle class if we're lucky. The few of us that are millionaires are very fortunate. All of our stories are just as valid. We are just as trans as each other, whether or not we have decided to have gender reassignment surgery or not, whether somebody quote unquote looks more feminine or more passable than another trans woman. We are just as trans. Nobody is more transitioned than anybody else. Being transitioned is a state of mind, not a state of body or a state of physicality. I am transitioned, not because I've taken hormones or that I'm going to be going under surgery next month. It's because I fully accepted my identity as a trans woman, and that's all it takes. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I have transitioned. So if you ever ask somebody if they have quote unquote fully transitioned, ask yourself, what do you mean by that? If you're asking if they've had surgery, please check to make sure that that's an appropriate question that you're asking that person and if they're open to answering it, because it is a very personal thing. And of course, I'm talking about it because I run a show called The Queer Life and I am an LGBT advocate and I do LGBT activism and education. So it's sort of my role to talk about these things. And if you've been listening to the show regularly, I generally do the news and I generally interview people and have them share their stories. But like I said, I felt like it was really important for me to share a little bit of my story. And for those of you out there who are listening to this, it's like, well, life's not about just whether you have a penis or a vagina. I completely agree. My life is more than my genitals. My life is more than me being a transgender woman. My life is more than me being host of the Queer Life radio show. My life is more than just what I'm talking about right now. My life is everything in my life. My life is about what I take in school. My life is about how I feel about, which political parties or what, which I'm not going to get into. My life is about my meditation. My life is about my yoga. My life is about the feral cats that I feed. My life is about the time I spend with my family. My life is about the work that I do. My life is more than just being a transgender woman. My life is more than being a transsexual. But this show is called The Queer Life, and so I'm talking about my queer identity, my transsexual identity, and that's what this show is about. So I know that I'm more than just my genitals, but that's just the subject of the show. If you have to name it, if you have to use a label, that's what this is about. Labels are useful. They allow us to convey a lot of information very, very quickly. And I know a lot of you out there listening are like still wondering, why would you do this? Why can't you just be happy with having a penis? I accept you, but why do you have to do that? And the reason why is I don't have to do this. I just know that if I do this, I'll be happier. I don't have to constantly feel insecure about having a penis. It's one less thing to worry about. And if I can do something about that, which just dominates my thoughts and my mind and how I move through the world, that makes a huge difference to me. I know that people love me and accept me the way that I am now, and I know that's something that not everybody looks for on me, but there's little things too. I want my clothes to fit better. I want to be able to wear the same bathing suit that other girls do without having to worry about people seeing that part of my body. I want to go to yoga and not have to worry about that either. I want to look in the mirror and not see that there. I want to be more congruent with how my gender feels in my head. And I have the great privilege of being able to have this surgery happen, have it covered for the most part, other than a copay, and change my body to the way that is closer than how I've always wanted it. A lot of people also ask me that if I'm going to have any other surgeries after it. They ask me if I'm going to have facial surgery. I'm okay with the way my face looks. I feel like I look fine in my own head. They ask me if I'm going to get my Adam's apple removed. You don't actually get your Adam's apple removed. It's called the trachea. It's called a tracheal shave. It's about $5,500. And I may or may not decide to get my trachea shaved, my Adam's apple. And I know a lot of you who are watching the YouTube video are probably going to start looking for it. And the mean people on YouTube are going to say, oh, I can definitely see that you have an Adam's apple. You're definitely a man. I'm not trying to hide anything. I know that I have an Adam's apple. That's okay. That's just a part of my existence. I acknowledge it. It's fine. If you want to say those nasty things, go right ahead. It only speaks about you as a person if you have to express those things. And that's fine. All forms of expression are valid, even the hurtful ones. Because somebody has a very passionate reason to say whatever those things are. People ask me if I'm going to get breast augmentation. Maybe, maybe not. My breasts have naturally formed through hormone replacement therapy, estrogen and progesterone and anti-androgens. So I've had some fairly natural development of my breasts, and they're good. I may or may not get breast augmentation. Maybe, who knows? There is a voice surgery for transgender women where they can make your voice higher. Honestly, my voice is sort of my bread and butter, and I don't care if you think I sound like a gay boy. I don't care. I like my voice the way it is. It's me, it's part of me. And honestly, I'm sort of gendered female a lot of the times, even when I pick up the phone. So it's not a big deal for me to get my voice changed surgically. That's a very dangerous surgery, actually, too. And yes, they exist. I don't remember the exact name for the voice surgery for transgender women, but yeah. Transgender men don't need to have a voice surgery to make their voice deeper because the testosterone that they take makes their voice deeper naturally. Hormones can only give, they cannot take away. So this voice that I have is mine, and that's fine. I'm okay with it. Besides, it works well for the radio, I think, don't you? But also, too, since I will have had, during my surgery, my testicles removed in the formation and the creation of the neo-vagina, I will not have to take anti-androgens anymore in the form of spironolactone, which I take a lot of every day because I won't be producing as much testosterone anymore. So there might even be a point where I might even have to take testosterone to make sure that my hormone levels are in a healthy balance. So that's possible. Who knows? We'll see how my body reacts to my newly formed body, my newly formed vagina. That's a part of it. What other surgeries? There's butt surgery. I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to get that. But if a trans woman or a cisgender or biological woman, quote unquote, decides to get that, that's fine. You know, I don't feel like that's necessary for me. So I might get laser hair removal and electrolysis so I don't grow my little peach fuzz. But then I know a lot of you ladies out there grow some facial hair too. So, you know, Gillette Fusion Mach 5 has been my best friend. And I am Asian, so I don't grow much facial hair. So that's fine. And the hormones make it so that I don't grow as much facial hair either. And not having testes anymore. And I won't be producing sperm, and thus my testosterone won't be growing facial hair as much either. So I probably will have to shave less afterwards. So I might get laser hair removal, maybe, if I have money, which I probably won't for a while. I'll have to check Groupon. I know that deals pop up. But that's my surgery. And that's my surgery. There's different surgeons out there. There's Dr. Marcy Bowers and Dr. Kennedy and Dr. Suporna and Dr. Broussard and all that stuff. All these amazing, incredible doctors out there. Dr. Crane, Dr. Satterwhite. All of them are experienced and trained, and they know what they're doing. And if a trans person decides to undergo this journey to change their body, whether you agree or disagree, just know that they're just trying to understand their relationship to their body and, like myself, just trying to learn to love myself and love my body and see where this life takes me. Isn't that what life is about? Anyway, we are just about out of time here. You've been listening to the Queer Life Radio Show, LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. I am your host, Kaya Kramer. This has been episode 67, My Gender Reassignment Surgery. Next week, we will resume regular programming, and it will be interviews with people doing great work and news and updates and all that stuff. You can find this episode and more available on thequeerlife.org. Thank you so much for listening. I want you to have a wonderful evening and just love yourself. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.